Our next speaker is beloved by all tech entrepreneurs who have ever needed to write an SBIR or STTR in the state, and beloved by many other people as well, but especially them. And so much so, in fact, that in my office, and Rebecca, I don't even know if you know this, but for a long time, we called the Little Rock office the ASBTDCRT. It was like our little joke because the ASBTDC is a terrible acronym. It's hard to learn how to say, but the reason we were always referring people to it was because of RT. So we would call it the ASBTDC RT. Anyway, Rebecca Todd, you have been a grant writer for 15 years or so. I read technical writing background, supporting entrepreneurs through the ASBTDC for a long, long time. And I would say the fact that BioVentures landed her is testament to your recruiting abilities, Dr. Sexton. That is the coup of the century. Well done, congratulations. And Rebecca, come on up here. Let's welcome her. I'm looking for your slides.
All right, thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. I think I know a few of you. I'm happy to be here today and tell you about some state resources for companies. Again, my name is Rebecca Todd. I didn't get it on the slide. I apologize for that. And as it's been mentioned before, my focus used to be more on the SBIR, STTR, but I'm broadening out to other types of opportunities as well. But certainly SBIR, STTR can only get you so far. It can get a lot of the work done, but there's always a need for other types of funding to bridge the gaps and to get you to the next stage of developing your technology. So I want to make sure that you're aware of some funding resources right here in Arkansas that either have been around a long time or that are currently being developed, and they're going to be more accessible in the near future. So here are just a few. There's actually more, but I wanted to mention some of the ones that have been around for a while and are usually good go-tos for researchers that are looking to get to the next stage of developing their technology for the marketplace. They're through these groups: Arkansas Economic Development Commission, or ADC, the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, or ADFA for short. Windrock International has several programs and services, though I was just going to focus more on their iFund program. Symbiosis is one of those that is developing. I think they might be making investments, but I've only heard about them pretty recently, but they seem like a great resource as well. And then finally, the Arkansas Research Alliance has a program that's more of a connector called the Core Facilities Exchange. So I'll make sure you know about too. So the ADC has several programs. I'll start with the smallest one. The TTAG, or Technology Transfer Assistance Grant, is a $5,000 cost match award that where the ADC puts in $3,750 and the applicant or an in-kind provider matches that $1,250. So a total of $5,000 goes to a third-party resource provider. Can provide services including anything from proposal writing assistance, like with SBIRs. It could also be guidance with developing a new prototype. So maybe looking at computer-aided design type work, that kind of thing could be part of it. You could also engage an expert market research person to give you some guidance about how to best plan to enter a new market that you might not be as familiar with. So getting that third-party expertise as well. So I put all those options there. Prototyping is also another one to look at. And all these, a lot of them, as we go further, I have less information myself. So I put contact information for the folks at these organizations to reach out to for more details. And the other one is Technology Development Program. Mark, I believe your company won one of these as well. This is royalty financing. So it's not necessarily a grant or contract. They expect to be repaid, but the terms are pretty favorable for a technology development program. It's up to $100,000, but often the average award is more like $50,000 for these. The royalty rate is just 1% of that initial investment. There's a cap also of one time that investment. And how it works is that once you start hitting sales with your technology, you'll start repaying that over a 10-year period with the TDP until you reach one time that initial investment with them. If you hit the 10-year mark and you still aren't making sales, they turn it into a grant after that time, so you're off the hook for repaying this award at that point. You can use the funds for a wide variety of things. It's similar in a way to the phase 1 of the SBIR program, anything to help move your technology to the next level, from maybe laboratory studies, getting some clinical work done, getting your current staff to keep the momentum going from some previous work that you started, preliminary work, the next stage of prototype development, all these kind of things. It's really broad and meant to be a way to really help be open-ended, so you can present your idea. This is what I need to do to get the next round of work done. So I'll be more attractive to investors. Maybe some of the groups that Jeff mentioned his talk, they definitely like to see that you've vetted your technology, and this is some state funding to help you get there. The contact person at the bottom, Bob Kucherashi, I'm not saying it right. He's the go-to now. Braden Duke was there for a long time. I believe he's just left ADC. The next one that they offer is the Seed Capital Investment Program, or SCIP. This is essentially working capital. So it's more so than the TDP. This is for companies that are later stage in their readiness to enter market. They just need money to build their team, to build capacity for sales, marketing, manufacturing, all these things, and need a good chunk of change to get there. The royalty rate is still 1% for this program, but the payback is a little bit more. You pay 4 times back the initial investment. So if you receive $100,000, you pay back $400,000 for seed capital. But it does help you get to that next stage of hitting the market pretty soon after you get this money. So that's a good resource too. I believe there's at least one client that I had here at UAMS that won one of these awards and was able to advance their technology after that. I do want to also mention the SBIR matching grant, but first say that for whatever reason, it's just for SBI awards, not for STTRs. So just keep that in mind as you look at the different options. But SBIR will only cover mainly expenses focused on the research and development work. There's things that it won't cover that are things like patenting or some types of marketing type of work. Engaging certain types of professionals isn't always permitted. So using this state money, you can help to get all these resources that you need that just aren't allowed with SBIR. And it also can help you bridge the gap between phase 1 and 2 when you're waiting for 4 to 6 months to hear if you won the next award. You don't want to lose that momentum on your research. This is a good way to get some state money, which is a grant, not a payback, so that you can keep the work going. And phase 2 is up to $100,000 match. I've rarely seen them not give the full amount for these, but I do want to, that is how they phrase it in their guidelines, is that you still have to compete for it and apply, and they have the right to give you a little bit less than these totals. But phase 2, that really helps to extend the work for those that just aren't quite ready to make sales to your customer after SBIR phase 2. You want to get money from the state to do that last round of work for your project and keep your research workers paid throughout that time.
Is that a one-time grant for company?
I believe companies can get 3 of these awards over their lifetime. So you can be strategic about them. And if you're waiting to hear back on a phase 2, maybe you wait for that one to get notice of award before you use it on another phase 1, for example. So question, any other questions, or feel free to just let me know. Then I also want to mention that R&D tax credits are one of the programs that they offer. These are for companies that they do, usually it's best if you have workers that are getting payment, so you're making revenue, because otherwise it doesn't make a ton of sense to ask for a credit that's a portion of their R&D salaries. The in-house one is the more common that they offer, and I won't read verbatim on the slides, but this is one it's not sellable. It's used for just your corporate income tax. The one that's less common is that targeted business R&D tax. It's targeted towards these 6 industry sectors that I've listed here, which biotechnology is one of those. So if you're interested in more of the option to sell your credits to investors, that's one to look at. There's 33% for that one versus 20% for the in-house credit. The other type of credit they offer, and you can apply for both of these, is the equity investment tax credit. This is usually for companies that are further down the road with their research work. They're more looking strictly to use the equity or use the credits to get equity investments to appeal to investors. And of course, it's good for your taxes to have these things as well. offsets 50% of your tax in a single tax year. So unfortunately, I don't have a ton more on this. This is where I would say definitely reach out to them for a little more detail. You still apply for these things, but it's not, it's a pretty straightforward application process. So it's worth looking into if you fit the bill, or in the near future, you will have paid research workers that want to, and you want to get a little bit more benefit from the state for the work you're doing. I would look into these for sure. Another organization in the state, the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, or ADFA, has a program. This one's, I would say, for those of you that are, once you get pretty far down the road with your work, this is one to look at because it is private investment that requires matching funds. And that's a little tricky when you're still trying to pay your workers and do research work. But it is worth looking at. It's $1 million per company is their maximum, a minimum $50,000 for the work they do. So Chuck Cathy can definitely give more information about that. There's something called the State Small Credit Initiative, I believe is the SSBCI is the acronym, and they've kind of rolled that money into their current programs. So ADFA is the lead provider in the state for that extra money that's really meant to be more support for underserved companies, minority-owned, women-owned, and those that fit into that description to have more access to these funds. So they are trying to make more of an effort to reach those kind of ownership companies with that ownership structure. Arkansas iFund is a program of Winrock International. This is another type of customer discovery program that I would say is less intensive than the iCore that Sarah and others have talked about. And it's one, I believe that Rejuvenex participated in this way back in the day. I remember them, they won one award, didn't they, through this? I believe so. So it's worth looking at, and it gives more of a, not such a deep dive into customer discovery as you want to learn about this program and get some mentorship along the way. Make sure there's a real market for what you're doing before you develop the technology, as we've been talking about today. Plus you have a chance to win some money, up to $50,000 in private investment capital. So that's kind of a nice perk as well. And I've definitely seen a lot of teams go through this and learn a ton, just like with iCore, but it's, like I said, it's a little bit less intensive, not so many interviews required, and you still get the flavor of what the customer is looking for. One thing I didn't have a slide for, but I would just mention that is there's also the Arkansas Governor's Cup competition. That might be something to look into if you have technology that you've gotten some IP protection through your university, but maybe you want to get some help with some business students or those from a mixed group of disciplines to help see what the business opportunity is and maybe take it even further to do these competitions. It's a great way to learn more about the marketing, provide some guidance to the students, but not be so heavily involved as recruiting a full-on team. I would say look into that as well, because they can also win quite a bit of money through these competitions and great connections to investors and other partners as well. I believe that Fayetteville has had tons of success in that program, and BioVentures also has technology that they can help match up with teams that are interested. So that's something to maybe look into as a next step after some of these customer discovery programs is that, and I know that John and others have been through that program too, so can speak to that experience. Symbiosis is one I wanted to touch on, is private investment. Although my understanding is they do invest in companies at all stages of development, even pre-revenue. They are more interested in therapeutic products or those near or close to being into the human testing phase. I've had other information here about their structure, how they lead a third of their investments, syndicate members for the rest, that they want to be long-term partners for you. I also thought it was interesting that they're not strictly interested in being investors. They also want to build capacity of the state and different programs and involving workforce and helping to stretch the capabilities of researchers like Mark, for example, that's really stretched then with, and any of you really that have all these juggling acts you're trying to perform, and maybe give it a little bit more support to make the road to entrepreneurship, or at least commercialization, an easier one. So I think that's great that this is something that's being developed here in Arkansas. I think Kevin might speak to this in his talk too, but at the same time, we're also growing a BioArkansas company here in the state that has links to the national level bio organization. And so that also helps to set the framework to give us more access to these national resources that help to make us stronger candidates for investment. in general. And so I think that'll help to grow Symbiosis, that we are at the same time growing this member program here in the state, which I'll leave that to be talked about later. But yes, this is also something else that they've mentioned that they want to do is engage UAMS specifically, work with BioVentures to help support things involving clinical trials, manufacturing, and all these things that might sound kind of overwhelming to try to do on your own, or even with those that you know. Just so these are opportunities to engage these groups that are developing, that want to help and bring more resources to you. The website's here on the bottom here for that. And then my last one that I wanted to mention is Core Facilities Exchange as a program of Arkansas Research Alliance. This is more of a connector site to let you know what in the state is available when you do get to the point where you want to do engineering work on your technology. Maybe there's not something right in your backyard or in your laboratory. What's out there in the state that you can access readily. It's a great tool to just be able to search what's out there. I've listed a handful of the resources that are included, but there are others that were on the site, just too much to squeeze into this slide. Amy Hopper has been in this space of entrepreneurship for a long time, and she's a great person to get more information, to know how to access that platform. This is super short, but these are the main ones I had to talk about, but I'm happy to talk about any questions you have and go deeper into these that I'm familiar with. Thanks so much. I'll turn it over to Kevin.